But there was a study that did come out, and I can't remember the guy's name, so I haven't gotten to say it. But he just there's studies that have come out. We can debate it or whatever, but apparently women make excellent CEOs and better CEOs.
No, they don't.
That's on. There's data on that one.
No, but here's the thing.
Changing.
You can look on that one. Someone else can Google that.
There's also data on this. There's also data that says that if you have corporations that do diversity hires, they actually do better than corporations that don't. That was a study that came out that I was just debating the other day, till I came into the debate with all of the modern refutations to the study based on, of course, the new evidence which emerged when they went back to replicate that study. Turns out those companies were already doing great. They just had so much money they were able to start playing with
Costco?
There was tons. There was a bunch of Fortune 500 S&Ps.
Right.
They just had so much money that they were able to start playing around with this model.
Right.
That's not a
It wasn't that model made them rich. They were already fucking rich. They just had enough money that they could start playing with the model.
What's the term for that? That's damn, I'm blanking on it. No. You know when like something looks like it's coming from this. There we go. Correlation.
It was a correlation, not a causation. Correct.
Exactly. So just
they actually said like
this
they
could
took
have
a
been.
correlate. They took a correlate
Exactly.
and then pretended it was a causation when it wasn't, to affirm a bias.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, anytime I look at this stuff, right, I realize that whenever it's led by empathy first, which women usually lead their morality by empathy first, it's usually a massive failure. It's usually a massive failure.
I hope that they mix both. I think that we can learn from both men and women. I agree, because I think that if a woman's just coming in and she's only looking at the empathy, then yeah, absolutely, you're losing it. But if a guy's coming in and he's only looking at one thing as well too, I think that, if you open yourself up and think about different things and new ways of attacking it.
I wouldn't dispute that. I wouldn't dispute the idea that there's going to be so I wouldn't monolith anything. I wouldn't say anything's always an all of anything. But if we look at general trends, what we can see is that women lead with empathy first, right? Men tend to lead with reason first.
Yeah, when I coach differently, like if I coach women, I have to get them to like stop with feeling stuff. It's I just need you forward motion. But with men, I need them stop forward motion because you're making mistakes and not assessing. So I need you intuitive. So men can listen to your gut. You've done it, and you've said it. You right now could look at someone or look at someone's profile and intuitively kind of know, based on logic, based on things, based on whatever. But you could know who that person is, what they're about to do or say, or whatnot, or if they're a good person, decent person, or full of shit.
I've had a significant,
you can have intuition as a man.
I've had significant advantages of having tons and tons of interpersonal conversations with thousands of different people all over the place, right?
So it helps your intuition.
I have significant advantages that the general public would not have when it came to understanding what people are saying, why they're saying it, what type of worldview they're leading from.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that.
No.
And because they don't, right, it's easy enough for me to just say, look, generally women do lead with empathy.
Yes.
And generally men do lead with reason.
Yes.
If that's the case, right, who the fuck would you want in charge of every situation?
Both.
Probably the sex.
I want the
that led
person.
with
I
reason.
want either one that's unlocked both. So for a man, if he's got intuition,
what advantage does empathy give you over reason?
Because you're human.
Intuition. Think about it as intuition.
No, not intuition. That's not my question.
Marketing.
What advantage?
Oh yeah, emotions.
Hold up. If a man has empathy, if a man has is able to do forward motion plus empathy, I feel like he's lethal.
What? How? What does the empathy give him?
In the marriage market,
care about other things.
Like if you're in the dating pool, a woman's going to look for a man who has empathy as well as strength.
EQ.
But if you have reason, couldn't she just fake the empathy?
Who's faking it?
Who's going to get married to someone who's been faking for that long? And you usually can spot red flags.
So, like the idea, I'll give you this great example of this, right? And almost probably every man will do this, where his woman comes to him with some stupid fucking problem he doesn't give a shit about, but she does, right? She cares about it for whatever reason, and it's literally fucking meaningless. Totally meaningless, means nothing, totally irrelevant, totally nonsensical. Nobody on planet Earth gives a shit. He's like this. He goes, "It's okay, honey." Right? Now, in his mind, I'm going to tell you what he's thinking. What he's thinking in his head is, God, this is fucking stupid, and I hope that you just stop with this fucking shit in the next 20 minutes. That would be great. I got other shit to do. I can't even believe that you're hysterical about this. They're faking empathy.
Well, if you do that too, you care about
wait, hold up. We have to do that too. We know. It's called a relationship. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding on that one. Don't jump down my throat on that.
Are you actually that way with your wife?
Sometimes. Like there's been times where my wife, for instance, right? Just like every woman on planet Earth, she's been on her period. She's completely irrational, right? Says some stupid ass fucking shit. And I've told her things like, go to your room. Literally go to your room and take a fucking nap.
And she came
until you
back
can
out that
act,
room and
until you can
talked to
act
you
like
after?
a fucking human being. Go to your room and take a fucking nap.
I hope she speaks.
And you know what she
I was
does?
saying,
She
she's
goes
still
to her
married.
room and she takes a
Is
fucking
she
nap. And the next thing I
stronger,
know,
though, too?
she acts like a rational human being.
Does she
again.
speak to you that way too, though? And I mean that in a good way. But is she? Do you guys get to communicate like?
Let us pretend.
You know what I mean?
Let us pretend for a moment.
Because I'm Italian, so we
Okay,
talk
hang
like
on,
that
hang
as
on.
women too
I'll
in our
respond to that.
families.
Yeah, I'll respond.
So
to this.
I'm just saying that it's a
I'll
good
respond to this.
thing.
I'll respond to this. Let us pretend for a moment that for a week out of every month, I completely lost my fucking mind due to hormones and started like, I don't know, ripping doors off of hinges. I'm sure she probably wouldn't be very pleasant about that.
Yes, exactly.
But guess what? But guess what?
She'd be like, go take a nap.
because I don't have what is called hormonal lunacy once a month. You don't have to worry about that. Men lead with reason. So no, of course my wife's not going to talk to me like that.
Maybe you might have some reason, but you suppress emotions and you emotionally explode in
You're
anger.
supposed to suppress emotions.
Yes,
As a man,
absolutely.
you're
Go
supposed
for
to.
it. Suppress. Men out there, suppress. And
Yes,
then hire men.
suppress. You don't want to see what happens. when
Push
you
it
have
down.
hormones.
You only allow
Balance,
horniness
balance.
and anger.
Really quick before I move this on, you've been grimacing the entire
I know that we got, and she had such a great point.
Yeah, she has. This
You've
is
not been happy.
yeah.
Come back to us.
What do you think about this terrible misogynist? What a misogynist. Can't believe what I've just heard.
Terrible, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's exactly why I don't turn to men for help or for emotional support. What did he actually say? Like he doesn't care about what the girl is talking about, like her feelings, saying like lunacy, hysterical, all these words. Like even hysteria, the word etymologically is like anti-women. Like it's made up by men to saying women are crazy. So I don't know.
Do women? Let me ask you a question. Do men get periods?
No. So
Okay,
what?
so
No, they do change hormonally.
But no,
We've
they don't.
noticed.
Not
Yeah.
like that. No,
You
they
do
don't.
have hormonal frequencies.
Do
like
women?
the-
Hang on. Do women one time per month have massive hormonal changes which affect literally how they think?
Yeah.
Not
Yes, but everybody.
Not every woman. You can
everybody
actually
No,
has,
not
like,
everybody.
emotions.
You can actually have
No.
smaller.
Like,
No,
why
not
do
everybody.
I turn to women for help? It's because, like, when I feel really sad, I need to have emotional support first.
Yeah, you want them to lie to you. Yeah, you want them to lie to
I
you.
can calm down, and then, like, I can reason myself. I can think it
Yeah.
through, and also
See, we don't want them to be lying to us. We want them to have genuine empathy, which
come
they
on.
don't
They
really
lie. Women
have
lie
as
to
Oh,
each
we
well.
all lie.
other
That's fine.
day.
No, we all
Not
do
so-
lie, of course.
I don't even care
We'll
about
come
that.
right back to this. I need this chat. I'm very sorry I missed it, or a TTS came in 25 minutes ago. I apologize. Normally we're on top of these, but I missed it.
21 donated $200.
Thank you, man. I
Women
apologize
with a
for
high
the
body
delay.
count,
This is high.
6+, have a greater likelihood of cheating, relationship dissatisfaction, can't pair bond, depression. And it's just disgusting. Why would any guy want that?
Actually, the last part of what that chatter said is the most important part. And it's just disgusting. That's all that needs to be. If it is the case from the man's prism that it's revolting and preferences are fine to have, then that's enough.
Sure, absolutely.
You don't need any
Your
more than that.
preference.
Your preference.
Your
I just-
preference.
But that
Yeah,
preference
it's
is
a very
changing.
uneven where men feel like it's okay for them, where with if a woman has a higher body count, it's a no. I think that's where there's a disconnect, and it just doesn't seem.
Well,
it doesn't
here's-
seem like fair.
well, here's the
Wait,
thing.
I don't have a
well,
better
let me
word.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
You go on first dates, yeah?
Of course, I go on first.
When's the
dates.
last time you've been on a first date?
It's been a while.
How many first dates have you been on?
In my ripe age, I'm not really sure. I'll say maybe in the last year I've gone on, I don't know, eight
Okay,
first dates.
who paid for the dates?
The men have. Yeah.
Did you offer?
One time, yes, and I actually paid, and the guy decided
One in
not to get
7.
anything.
Yeah. And then, but you
One
said
out of 8.
Oh, wait, and he didn't pay for anything.
He didn't ask for anything when I offered to pay.
Right.
So I was like, all right,
Well,
fine,
that's a
getting
bit-
my own thing.
So, I mean, we can discuss about what's fair, what's unfair, or
Right.
double standards, or benefits that men receive, benefits that women receive, male privilege, female privilege. You seem to have a double standard as it relates to who pays on the first date. So, what's the actual problem?
I don't think it's a double standard. I think
How-
that ooh,
Do you pay for dates?
I have.
Okay.
Other than the fact that he didn't order anything, I was very willing to pay
But
for it
okay,
myself.
so 7 of the 8 dates that you went on just this year,
Mm-hmm.
the man paid for all of them.
Yes, because
so
he
reckon-
asked me out on a date, and I was like, sure.
Do you
that'd
ask
be
men
great.
out on dates?
No.
Oh, okay. So conveniently, it's just very convenient. This whole men should pay on dates. Whoever asks should be the one who pays on dates. But women conveniently never ask men on dates. So your argument as to if your argument is whoever asks should pay would make sense to me if men and women asked each other out at equivalent rates, but they clearly don't. So you're kind of going around the bush as to beating around the bush, or not beating
I'm
around the bush.
actually interested in how this correlates to my thing about
you're-
body
okay,
count. Why is it okay for a man
Sure.
to...
So
okay.
here's the example. So you were saying, well, it's kind of okay for men to have a high body count, but when women have a high body count, there's an issue with it. So you claim there's a double standard that exists, right?
Yes.
Right, and you might say, for example, as follows. If a guy himself has a high body count, it would be unfair or unreasonable or hypocritical or a double standard for, as a man with high body count, to desire a woman who has a low body count.
Oh,
But-
so definitely he can desire someone,
Yeah.
but I just don't think it should be shamed. Like, oh, it's disgusting.
I don't think we're talking about, well,
But that's
Are we
what that
not-
was
are
your
we not-
To
point.
use that term
That was-
disgusting to
yeah,
describe a
to-
person
that's what I'm
because of their
saying. It's like,
human
why is it
experience.
disgusting for the women
no,
to have
well,
it? Okay.
I'll explain it. So, for example, body count sort of moves it far away from what a sexual encounter actually is. So, for example, and there could be differentials here. You'll probably respond like, oh, well, a woman could have a high body count, but she's been celibate for 3 years. But I'd point to it like this. For example, here's how it's disgusting. If a woman slept with a different guy the night before and she goes on a date with me and I sleep with her, that's disgusting.
To you.
To most men, that's going to be disgusting if a woman recently slept with another man, especially if she fucked him without a condom, especially if she let him come inside her.
Can I say
I'm
why?
sorry.
Can I just ask why?
I'm sorry.
Why do you know that?
Well, I mean, why is
what
it disgusting? Biologically, socially, or emotionally? What is disgusting?
All
Oh, yeah.
of the
about
above.
Well, what is-
Okay,
what
can we
is-
break those down
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
individually?
Let's
I would
start.
love that.
Sure. Actually, let's just start with.
I just want
let's
to say
start with the
really quick,
biological.
Personally, I actually wouldn't disagree with you. Now, although I have gone on dates and things like that, I would not disagree with you. I just mean in general, I just want to know why it's okay. I know she wants to discuss it, but I don't disagree. If she was with somebody, went raw, he came in her, whatever, and then goes on another date, and then that's going to happen the very next day with a new
Yeah.
person, I'm not in disagreement with you.
The main point I was going to say here is that when it comes to the unfairness, I think you're pointing towards the double standard or the potential hypocrisy. Now, the thing is, my view is, when it comes to both men and women, we are allowed to desire things in a partner, traits in a partner that we ourselves don't possess. So, for example, I wouldn't find it a double standard necessarily or hypocritical if a woman who was poor was attracted to and dated or wanted to date really rich men. I don't think that would be hypocritical or double standard. So a guy who has a high body count, for example, I don't think it would be hypocritical or double standard if, despite him having high body count, he has a preference for women with a low body count.
I think it's different because I think it's...
How would it be different?
Well,
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think because it's morally. Like, if you're loose with yourself with other people, then, maybe it's the person that doesn't have as much money, that, like, your example was of a poor girl. Okay.
No, go ahead. I have
Okay.
a response, though. Go ahead.
Sure. So, like, if your example is like, okay, there's this poor girl or somebody who's maybe just like a server, she doesn't make a ton of money, she wants to date someone who makes 6 figures, who knows, whatever, a multimillionaire. I don't think that that's the same morally. Maybe she hasn't had the same opportunities to somebody a guy that sleeps around.
Okay, so I'll respond
as
to
much,
that. So are you stating that when it comes to preferences, people are only entitled to having preferences as it relates to morals?
I think
Because
that-
women have, one last thing and I'll let you respond. Women have plenty of preferences for men that have nothing to do with morals. And they do, and they also have preferences that do relate to
Just
morals.
relationally, even to just attraction, right?
It sounds like we went off topic from shaming someone, though.
Not really. Like we're still on.
I think it's still somewhat on top.
Yeah.
It's kind of flow.
But go ahead.
No, I'm
I'm going to let this
yeah,
come
you
in,
go.
but then you can
Christopher
respond.
Murphy donated $200.
Thank you, Christopher Murphy. Sorry for the
Andrew,
delay.
you can't reason with these women. They're driven by emotion and are therefore
Wow.
unreasonable. Reason and logic push society, ladies, not your feelings.
That sounds like an emotional response.
But when you go home, right? Because when you go home, you
Thank you,
want that
Christopher.
woman with
Appreciate it.
feelings. You don't want a woman that sits there and is analytical. You don't come home to a pair of boobs that are hard as rocks. You come home
some
to
men
a
do,
soft.
and
Some do,
and you know.
I mean,
but-
like I think there's a balance. There's just that balance that we have to.
You make a fine point. I would just give the quick refutation before Brian and the gal get back into it. The only thing I would say is this: it is the case. You are right that men are perfectly happy to have women who lead with emotion in their life if they submit to them.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm more masc in my relationship, and my current partner and fiance, she's more feminine, and she definitely like
She submits.
She submits to me because like I mean she makes more money than me as a pilot and me as like a chef and doing like more gig work and stuff like that.
That
So
has
I
nothing
just
to do with what submission is ultimately. But,
well, no, I definitely know that, but I just mean
oh,
like
yeah, if you-
the
Did you
best
want to
of both
want to
worlds.
continue?
If you don't mind just repeating, I kind of lost track of the.
you guys were focused on whether or not it was hypocrisy, Brian.
Oh, because
if
of
there was
like
a
the
focus
more-
on the higher body count
I think
for
that
men
yeah.
versus women.
I mean, I think that if long term you're looking for somebody, like obviously you're going to want to connect on moral things, on compatibility is a factor in a long term relationship. So yeah, I think that if you're going to be not asking but looking for the preference of somebody who has a lower body count, you yourself should not have been like a hoe as a man.
Well, let me see if I can make a response to this by
Okay.
just asking you a simple question. Would it be a deal breaker for you if you met a man and he had all the right criteria? He was a millionaire, perhaps. He met the attractiveness scale that you wanted. If he had slept with 150 women, but he wanted to settle down with you.
I think if he was ready to settle down, then that's fine as long as he's clean. And now
Yeah.
it's just him and I were.
So that wouldn't be a
monogamous.
deal breaker, right?
Right.
Okay, but for men, that's a deal breaker.
But for a majority of men, I want to know why.
Yeah,
Well, it
okay.
doesn't-
So here-
maybe
but-
logically,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Well, actually, it should logically make sense. Hypocrisy, people use this word the wrong way. Hypocrisy doesn't mean I'm guilty of the thing in which I'm telling you not to do. That's not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy has a experience of pretending. So let me give you an example. I smoke, but I tell my children not to smoke. Does that make me a hypocrite? Should I tell my 10-year-old they can smoke?
Well, I mean, 10 years old, there's a lot of things you shouldn't do at 10. As a parent,
Yeah,
you're gonna
but
say,
why-
"Hey," I do think that it's confusing for the child.
Yeah, yeah,
if
but
you're
the
telling me not to
pretending,
smoke.
that's why it's not hypocrisy. Pretending is what's the hypocrisy. So if I were to say it's wrong for anybody on planet Earth to smoke and then smoked, I'd be a hypocrite. But if I'm like a fat person, let's say I'm really fat, right, and I'm around another fat person and say, hey, you should lose some weight, right? That's not hypocrisy. That person actually maybe should lose some weight. You actually being fat doesn't have anything to do with whether or not that person should lose weight or not. It would only be if you said, right, I myself, right, as a not fat person, am telling you not to lose weight. That would then make you a hypocrite, right? Hypocrisy has you have to have some type of pretending associated, or it's not hypocrisy. People confuse this with just you are guilty of the same thing you're telling the other person not to do. And a great example of this. I was a former drug addict, let's say.
Okay.
And I'm telling people not to be drug addicts. Am I a hypocrite?
No, because you've changed your ways and you're trying to. I would think that as a man, you're trying to lead by example.
Right.
That's what a traditional man.
But if I said, okay, I'm a former drug addict, you should stop being a drug addict, and secretly did drugs, would I be a hypocrite then?
Yeah.
Right. That's what actual hypocrisy is. So if
I
a
need
man,
to see the definition. No, I'm just
so
kidding.
if a man has a preference and he says, I don't want a woman who has a high body count, right? But he's fine with his own high body count. That's not hypocrisy.
Okay.
Sad
I
for
mean,
him,
to
but-
me, I'm still not convinced. It still seems like an unfair. Like, I mean, obviously, people can have their preferences.
Well, you can say it's not fair.
Yeah, I just
but
don't
you can't say it's
understand-
hypocrisy.
I don't know.
What's
I-
hypocritical about it? Being guilty of that which you're accusing the other person, that's not hypocrisy.
Depending on the why.
But so when you say it's unfair, right?
I can't think of a better word to use.
That's fine,
That's
but
why.
let's go ahead and grant
Double
this.
standard, maybe?
Yeah.
That might be better.
Let's go ahead
Why
and
is there a
grant.
double standard? Yeah.
No,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Let's go ahead and grant that it's unfair. So,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand where the logic is behind it. If you guys,
what do you mean?
well, you
The
guys,
logic of what?
the logic of why it's okay for you, I'm not going to say you, men typically always they are known for sleeping around. If they can get it, they're going to take it, because maybe women. I'm sorry.
Well, can you clarify when you say it's okay, what specifically? Because I don't think I'm making the claim that it's okay for men to be promiscuous, but I am saying it's okay for a man who has a high body count
to want a woman who doesn't.
Date a woman who has a low body count or who's a virgin.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think it's the shame and you're disgusting and you're calling, it's revolting, and yet they're sleeping around doing the same.
I'm actually fine with that too. I'm fine with that too.
So,
But are you saying it's revolting for both to be doing it,
Or just
like both to be
women?
promiscuous, or just women?
My viewpoint always follows from Christian ethics. So promiscuity in men is, from my view, right, is a no-no, just like it is with women. But while that's prescriptively true, meaning this is a prescription I give men and women, I'm also going to give a descriptive truth. The descriptive truth is that it's less of a big deal for women than it is for men. And because that is the case, that women perceive it that way versus men, the societal damage is always going to be lesser if men do it than if women do.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
that makes
it.
sense.
Simple.
Honestly, yeah.
There's my
Until that
prescription.
changes.
My prescription
Yeah.
is that neither of you should do this, but descriptively, if this behavior is found in one sex versus the other, it's more damaging. That's why we have virtues. That's what femininity and masculinity is. It's a tie to virtue from the sex, right? So if women engage in one type of virtue and it does way more damage if they abandon it versus men, it's feminine. It's masculine. If men refuse the virtue and does way more damage to society, that's a masculine virtue.
So you're saying societally, because men typically do it. Hold on, let me take this back.
No. The
Because
ramifications on society
Yes.
are, it's not as bad, right? The outcomes are not as bad.
Because
if
women are
men-
generally more accepting of a high body.
No, not just that, because of reproduction. Like there's a reproductive element which goes into it, which would make it worse for especially for the outcome for children, if it is the case that women are promiscuous versus men. Like, for instance, you could have 300 promiscuous men all screwing the same woman, right? For like the purpose of reproduction or whatever. That would be less bad than if you had 300 women get pregnant and be single moms, right? Like ultimately that would be worse, right?
Wait, worse for what?
Just for society in general, if there was 300 single moms
Unless you needed more
versus one single mom, right?
Yeah.
That would still be worse. You would agree, right?
I don't know. Are you trying to make kids? I don't. Yeah.
It's not a matter
I
of
get what
making
you're saying
kids.
with that.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to give you a scale.
Yeah.
That's it. Just like a sliding scale.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of it's good. Just which
Right.
would be more optimal, which would be
Which
better.
makes sense.
Personally, my boyfriend and my ex right before him both had very low body counts. I don't know the exacts, but I know it's pretty low, and I actually appreciated that in him.
okay.
Yeah, we're not even saying that there's a matter of appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
We're just saying that ultimately, here's what I see, that women, generally speaking, have a lesser interest in the male body count than the men do with the female body count.
Sure.
And I also see the outcomes of if you have promiscuous women, because they can reproduce and men can't, seems to actually be worse if women are promiscuous than men. Because men can be promiscuous with a small pool of women, right? But if women become promiscuous with a large pool of men, there's going to be reproduction.
Is there a component here too to the unfairness and the double standard is that, and I agree with Andrew insofar as I don't think either men or women should be promiscuous. I don't think promiscuity is good in men or women. But I do know that there is some cohort of men who, for example, if a woman sleeps with a bunch of men, she's a slut. If a guy sleeps with a bunch of women, he's a stud. Like it's, and not all, trust me, there's men who frown on the guy who's promiscuous too,
Right.
like I just said.
Right.
Like
but,
me.
But
I call them fucking degenerates.
They're all DJ.
I like that we've gotten here though. This is great.
Yeah.
But there is some men who will be impressed by a man who's sexually successful with a lot of women. So is that a component of your argument?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of
Sure.
it. So
And-
I mean I'm understanding where Andrew came from with the whole,
Right. I mean, I would,
Yeah.
again, just to be clear, not in favor of male promiscuity.
Right.
But I guess my response to that would be, when it comes to the impressiveness factor, or men who sleep with a lot of women, they're like, oh, you're such a stud, you're so
Yeah.
cool. The reality is, any single woman, if she wanted to, could be a slut.
Oh, yeah.
Any single woman could be a slut. Very, very few men can be a slut. Like most men, average man, he can't sleep with a new girl every single day. Every single girl at this table, if you wanted to, you could sleep with a new guy every single day of the week. You could probably fuck 3 guys in a day. You could probably fuck 10 guys.
Hang on, I see you shaking your head. I will prove this to you. I will put a bet on the table right now for $500 that if you and I go out to the street right now with a cardboard sign, you hold it up and say, I'll sleep with any man who wants, and I hold it up and say, I'll sleep with any woman who wants, which one of us can picked up first?
Okay.
Which one of us getting picked up first?
Probably me.
Yeah, huh?
But
Why do you disagree, I guess?
It's easier for women to go out and sleep around, but for some women that's not the case. And for some men, it's easy to go sleep around. So it's like,
Sure,
you can't even say it's easier for one gender over the other because it's up to looks at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's attractive men who can sleep around, and there's attractive women who can sleep around.
Okay. So look, just to be clear, I'm not saying that there's 0 men who are sluts. That's not even my argument.
Yeah,
There absolutely are men who can sleep with a bunch of women. This is not what I'm disputing. And then I think men, either if they're really good looking, they can do this. If they have like exceptional top tier charisma or personality, they can do it. If they're like, if they're super wealthy, but they're a dork, it's probably still gonna be a little hard, but like if they're super rich,
They just
might
throw
help.
money.
Yeah,
And then
and pay
if
for it.
status,
Yeah.
like she said, status, celebrity, so like a professional athlete, a musician, an actor, these men, even if they're not really that good looking or they don't have great personalities or whatever, although sometimes status tends to give the aura or the halo of charisma, even if there's not actually any there. But yeah, so those are the scenarios in which men can be sluts, so to speak. But I don't think most men fall into those categories. Most men don't fall into those categories. So the reality is you can take a woman who's average looking, who's got a terrible personality, terrible personality. She has 0 status. She has no fame. She has no money. She doesn't have any of these things. She could hop on Tinder and sleep with 3 guys a day if she wanted to. Most women don't want to do that, but if she could, is what I'm trying to get at. Whereas like most men just can't do that.
You mean physically? I'm sorry.
What do you mean physically?
Do you mean they can't do that physically?
No, what I'm saying is they
Like on the
wouldn't.
apps, they're not
they
going to get
wouldn't-
enough
Why
matches.
can't they do it?
Even with like, so there's a degree of effort too, right? Like a guy who's really good looking, but he stays inside all the time and doesn't communicate with women, but otherwise could get laid, isn't going to get laid. So there is a degree of effort that's involved. But I would argue like an average looking guy, even if he's like putting in like a really good faith effort, like he spends 3 hours a day on dating apps, he spends another hour or 2 messaging back and forth with different women, he's not going to get laid every single day. Whereas a woman, I think you could spend about an hour on a dating app, do some messaging, you could fuck three dudes in a day.
And I think that us women see it completely, for me anyway, I see it completely opposite. I was on like every app there was, and I got a lot of play, especially as like a masculine presenting person. But
Yeah.
I think it was because I was a more masculine presenting person that I got so much play. So for me, I would definitely say that if I was biologically male, it would be so much easier for me to swipe right and link up than it would be because then, like he said, like
should
women
try
have
it.
periods. Women have.
You should try that.
I mean, we just.
You should try that.
I have, and it was great.
Going to you though, have you been on dating apps at all?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How many guys do you swipe no on the dating apps?
I don't know. I haven't been on recently, but quite a few.
Like what percentage of
I
men?
don't
If
know,
there's
maybe
100
like
guys, how many do you say no to?
Probably like 60-40.
60-40. Okay, but how many of those guys do you meet up with?
2.
You've only met up with 2.
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Of all the men that you've wanted to sleep with, did you sleep with them?
No.
Okay. What's the rejection rate? So just to be clear, so you offered essentially not I'm not necessarily suggesting super directly, but you offered to the guy basically, here's some pussy. You gave it to him on a silver platter, and he's like, no.
No, that's not always been the case, but it's been more or less like, I don't know. In my experience, I've been willing to, but then it's just like the personality is just, I don't know how to explain it.
The guy's personality?
Yes, it's like,
Yeah.
it's,
Wait,
it's,
that's making Brian's point.
it's not good, and then it just makes me like. I
Wait,
don't know.
you were willing to have sex in general, but that specific guy, well, I mean, I think we're all willing in general to have sex with people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, of course. So you're saying, well, that's just a rejection then.
I mean,
Some
yeah,
of
but
us
I mean,
anyway, I guess.
But so, okay. But you were saying that, wait, I'm just confused. So, okay, of the men that you've offered sex to, were you turned down?
one time, yeah.
But just to be clear, I'm not saying like you had a boyfriend and one time he was sick and he didn't want to have sex that one time. I'm just
No,
saying.
I've been turned down before, yeah.
You've been rejected.
Yes,
okay.
I've been
How many guys have you turned down for sex?
For sex? I don't really have.
Well, I have
Well-
I have a way to maybe demonstrate this that everybody will agree with. I call it the flasher hypothetical. It works like this. Hang on. It works like this. We'll take a 25-year-old random man, 25-year-old random woman. They have an overcoat on and nothing underneath, and they're flashing people in a random Walmart parking lot. And what they do is they open up the overcoat and they say, hey, you want to go have sex?
What the fuck?
Tell me which one, man or woman, is going to have sex almost immediately versus the other one, man or woman?
Who I would have sex
No,
with?
no. Who any
Who
any normal
person in general?
normally would.
Probably a woman.
Okay, next.
I definitely say a woman.
Next.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Next.
Woman.
Next.
wait. I'm kind of confused on the question.
Woman. Woman. Okay, that's the end of that then.
Right, done.
That's the end of
Women
that.
are more desirable.
Done.
To bring it back to this though, the whole thing is like, okay, why is there this double standard where men are kind of exalted for their promiscuity, not by all people, but by some group of men, whereas women are almost kind of universally looked down upon if they're promiscuous. It really just comes down to the impressiveness of the achievement.
That makes sense.
I think to some degree it's incredibly easy for women to get laid, whereas for men there's some
Very
degree
difficult.
of skill and complexity in order to achieve that.
So for
Like
men,
as a woman,
yeah.
you don't need skill to get laid.
By the way, as demonstrated by our hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay. As demonstrated by our hypothetical.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty grimy, not that. I don't even know how to explain it. Just some grimy
Sure.
guys been able to get laid easily.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a guy who actually spread STDs around a school in my
Sure.
town because he was just sleeping around.
Well, was he grimy because
And there's
of
going to
the
be lots of
STDs?
other men who
No,
are
he was
around
just
him who are like,
grimy in
how
general.
did you
He was
do
just
that?
grimy in general.
But if